is L. Von Spencer, and I was in the Army during the Korean War.
Ellis Sorensen, and I was in the Army.
Hey, my name is Don Fotheringham. I'm a veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps, and I fought in the Pacific in 1944 and 1945. I was at the Marshall Islands in 1944, and I landed on Iwo Jima on D-Day, February 19th, 1945.
Drafted, yes.
I was drafted in 1967. I just got back from a mission from England and went to school at BYU for a semester, and they said if I went to school I wouldn't get drafted, but I did.
No, I enlisted. I joined the Marines.
22 when I went in.
I was an 18-year-old veteran back in high school. I kind of sneaked in early. I gave them the wrong age when I enlisted.
16?
I was, I just barely 16 when I went in, so I had a lot of school to catch up with.
And I went to Vietnam in the 199th Light Infantry Brigade is what it was. And we were just outside of Saigon, about 25 miles was our base camp, but I never seen the base camp but maybe 4 times while I was there. We were usually out in the jungle. The 199th was, like I said, a light infantry. I carried a machine gun at one time. I had an M16 most of the time.
First day, terrible. Terrible. I wasn't used to such harsh discipline. It just, it was, no matter how ridiculous it was, you do it. I thought, hey, what's going on here?
Yes, I guess it was at Fort Douglas when I was sworn in to the Army. Rough. Yes, I took my initial training at Fort Lewis, Washington. I was there for about 9 or 10 weeks, and it rained all the time, and that didn't make any difference as far as the Army was concerned, whether it rained or whether it didn't. We still trained and were on the firing range or long hawks or whatever, marches, whatever you want to say, because that's just the way it was.
Boot camp was terrible. When you got off when we first got there, the first thing they did was start yelling at you, hollering at you, calling you names, and then they take you down to the barber shop, shave all your hair off your head. Y'all look just alike. It wasn't the best thing I ever did in my life, but that's boot camp.
Boot camp was very rough. It was deliberately rough. It was supposed to be rough to kind of take the independence out of you and make you a part of a moving force. Yeah. That's the idea of boot camp. I was assigned to headquarters company at first. I was sent out to Bremerton, Washington as a guard at a naval air station. So the Marine Corps is a part of the Navy. It's a division of the Navy. So the Marines did all the guard duty, and so I patrolled the air base in a Jeep all night long, watching out for enemy invaders or whatever. That was my first assignment.
Find the enemy,
Yeah.
and to eliminate them. And they tried to eliminate us a few times.
I was trained as a military policeman. And that's what I went to Korea as a military policeman. There's one that I shall never forget. I was on the Well, I was with a frontline company, or I should say division, and the day the war ended, as a military policeman, I was assigned to on an early morning patrol, and we went up to the line, the main line of resistance they called it, and the Koreans had been pouring thousands of men against our lines for 2 days before the war ended, even though they knew exactly when the war was going to end. I should say the armistice was going to take effect, and exactly the location that the lines would be. But as I said, for 3 days they had thrown thousands and thousands and thousands of men against our guns. I was up there the next morning, and I walked down over the line, or the military crest of the hill, to the line, and between our line, our trenches, and the Korean was about a quarter of a mile, I would say, and I don't believe it would have been possible for anyone to put a foot down in that total area without touching a dead man. You'll never forget that morning.
I'll tell you one time I got shot, and that one time I got wounded, and I don't know whether the bullet went through a tree before it hit me, but I got shot underneath the arm, and it didn't penetrate. I was lucky on that.
Oh, yes, I do, yeah. When I got ready to go overseas, I was sent to Camp Pendleton, where we were with the 4th Marine Division, where we prepared to go overseas, and I served as an amphibious truck driver in the 4th Amphibious Truck Company. That's a truck that's built like a boat that has wheels on it, has 6 wheels, and propeller in the back, and a rudder, so you can go on land or on sea with it. And perhaps the most interesting experience that I can think of was at Iwo Jima, about 10 days after D-Day. We received an air raid alarm that we were going to be strafed and bombed, and all the amphibious vehicles were ordered off the beach. So my partner and I, who were driving the truck, pulled off into the water, and as soon as we got in the water, they laid a smoke screen. So we couldn't see any, we didn't know exactly where we were, and we were afraid we'd run into a ship or something. All the ships pulled up anchor, and they took off, so we had no ship to go back to. And so we just started heading out to sea. And we couldn't use our compass because there would be no light, to show the enemy where we are if we had a flashlight on the compass or something. So we kind of traveled by osmosis, I guess you'd say, for all night long. And when morning came, we didn't know where we were. We were out in the middle of the ocean. We couldn't see land in any direction. And I looked at the fuel tank, and I said to my partner, no matter where we are, we're not going to make it back. We don't have enough gas to make it back to Iwo. And while we were trying to figure out what to do, along comes an American destroyer ship and pulled up right alongside us, and the officer with a megaphone, he says, "Are you all right? Here's this amphibious truck out in the middle of the ocean." He said, "Are you all right?" "Yeah, we're all right, but we're lost."
Yeah, that would be so scary.
It was scary. I said, "We're lost." And he said, "Well, do you have any food?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, just a minute." They lowered down in a bucket tuna sandwiches and lemonade. And then I said, "Okay." He said, "Do you need fuel?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "What kind? Diesel or gasoline?" I said, "Use gasoline." So they lowered down a couple of cans of gasoline, and And I said, okay, now we've got gas, we've got food, which way is evil?
Yeah.
And the officer said, it's just set your compass just due northeast from where you are right now. So it took us all day to get back where we could even see the island, but we had enough fuel and we had food. And that was a wonderful experience. The most wonderful part was this. It showed how wonderful America is. That these men on that ship couldn't do enough for us. And, you know, here's this big ship stopping to help this little dot in the water of a little truck. And that was wonderful.
Yeah.
I suppose I got the Korean medal.
Purple Heart.
I got the Bronze Star for heroic service on Iwo Jima.
Purple Heart's what you get for being wounded.
You sign these
And that's about the only medal that they give you medals for being in that country in Vietnam. And I was a good shot, so I got several medals for rifle and pistol shooting and things like that.
I was only in for a year. I got out on a hardship discharge because my wife hurt her eyes and was blind, and the Army wouldn't pay for it, and I couldn't. So I was in almost exactly a year.
I was in for almost 3 years. I went in 1943, the beginning of 1943, and I got out in October of 1945.
Came home in 1969.
As far as entertainment was concerned, we were pretty busy most of the time, and once we were able to get off duty, we were pretty glad to go to our bunk and go to sleep.
Most of the Marines loved to gamble. And there was a dice game or a card game somewhere on the ship or in camp at all the time. Gambling was a big way they entertained themselves. And I was a terrible gambler. It didn't take a lot of my time because I always lost my paycheck the first day. And so so aboard ship, when it got boring, we had books to read, and finally, after I read everything on the ship, there was nothing left but my Bible, so I decided, well, I'll read it.
We would play some volleyball, but most of the time, we were out doing patrols and different things like that.
Oh, yes, lots of close friendships.
But I met a lot of different people, guys in the military. One of them I'm going back to see. One guy I met in the hospital, I'm going back to see this next week.
Several good friends, some of whom I went in with initially. There were a couple from Hatchtown, Hatch over here, that I was friendly with. Riggs and Barney was her last name. And there was a young man from Logan, from Provo, I guess. He was married too, and our wives got to be real good friends as well as we were. And I'm having trouble with them remembering it's only been said 55 years ago.
Got in contact with him, it was quite a bit after I got home. Wondered what happened to him, and had his mother and dad's address, and I wrote them a letter and got in contact with him. We've been in contact ever since.
I don't know of any that I can tell you.
The humor in the Marines, in fact in the service, was a little bit crude. It was hard for me to get used to it. I wasn't used to speaking a kind of language. There was a lot of foul language, and they were good guys, great guys, but just had a different kind of humor than I had. So I won't tell you those stories.
Oh, okay. That's all right.
not exactly funny, but when I was at Presidio, we were all just really kept busy. I mean, we were on the go 20 hours a day, I think, and one day I had got an opportunity to do my washing, which I hadn't done for several days or weeks or whatever, and went down and I don't know, for some reason I got in kind of an altercation with one of the guys that was using the washer, and I thought well anyway, but it turned out that we made up and found out he was from Utah and became my best friend, so you never know about things like that.
We had several black people in our unit, and they were good people. But there was one of them that I built me a hooch one place we were staying with our ponchos, made a little tent, and it was kind of shady in there. Well, he'd get in my tent all the time. He was too lazy to make him a tent. He'd get in my tent. So I was going around one day, and I went around, and somebody had killed a great big snake. So I got that snake, and I took it, and he was in my hooch asleep, and I laid it across, his feet were sticking out the bottom, and I put that snake across his feet. And then I went around to the front of him, and I said, "Hey, you've got a snake on you." And he just went stiff as a board. And then he jumped up, he tore my hooch down, and took off yelling.
When the war was over, I went back to school. And
To school at BYU and graduated in industrial education.
My wife had just barely got out of the hospital. I got $200 as mustering out pay, and that's exactly what the doctor charged for her eye operation. So I went to work in Salt Lake City while she was recuperating, and we were there for about 2 or 3 months, I guess. It means a whole lot.
That made freedom mean a whole lot. People nowadays don't understand what freedom is, and our nation's in trouble right now, I think. Our flags mean something to me, a whole lot. I fly it every day. I think that it made you realize what we have here in America. A lot of kids don't understand. I remember, and I've told a lot of kids this, one of the saddest things I seen in Vietnam, we were stationed by Saigon, and the trash trucks that we had would go into a dump there, and there's about 25 kids that would chase those trash trucks into the dump so they could get something to eat. One of them had his leg taken off some way, but he had a wooden crutch that he'd made, and he could run just as fast as those other kids. And you know, kids here, they don't even have a clue about what it really means to have freedom.
Yeah.
And if we're not careful, we've got people who want to take that away from us. And that's one of the greatest things about living in America. It is the greatest thing.
Important thing in my life, and I think it ought to be the most important thing in everyone's life.
freedom means a tremendous amount of opportunity and a tremendous amount of responsibility. Freedom is not free. You earn it. And in order to keep it, you keep on earning it. And so it's a combination of responsibility and privilege. That's what freedom is to me.
I fear that too many of our young people in this country are doing exactly that. They're taking freedom for something that will always be there, and that they don't feel that they need to, what do I want to use, work for? There were quite a few people when we were in the draft and later on that said they didn't feel it was necessary to
Somebody else.
to, to fight for freedom, or to work for freedom, or to do whatever was necessary to maintain freedom. They just want to do, all they want to do is what they want to do. Quite frequently, that's not what they want to do.
I think it's important that people know that during World War II, the patriotism was deeper. This school and this area has been very attentive of veterans. You've done a wonderful job of recognizing veterans, more than any place I've ever been. But when the Vietnam War came along, the Korean War came along, there was a huge anti-war, unpatriotic movement. It was very un-American, very unpatriotic, and so those veterans didn't have the blessings that I had.
If you have put your life on the line, it makes a difference.